that I think would probably yet to be worked out. And if Dr. Serrani or Dr. Serrani's husband would like to address it, obviously you guys are trying to negotiate, and I definitely respect that, but at the end of the day, I think your signature on a document saying, yes, I support this along with the other 73 would be important for me personally to support this going forward.
Absolutely. And I actually, my name is
Please
Emma
give us your
Serrani.
name. Would you please give us your name? And
Emma Serrani, and I live at 11223 Matthews Cove Lane, and I bought my home in 2008, assuming it was going to be public roads. And I never had any expectation that anything would change, and I have no problem with a gate. No problem. My concern are the roads. I know how much it can imaginably cost later on if there's a problem with the roads, that I never bought into that. I just never did. Likewise, I didn't buy into the fact that, you know, the current homes that are being built right now are in the 420 range, and my home was well above that. And it was the developer who decided to change the whole look of the houses because they wanted to sell the lots. So they sold them to Saddlebrook, and now we have cookie cutter houses, you know, intermingled into the whole, you know, the cove. And so that affects the cost of my home. And, you know, if I want to sell it in the future, you know, gate or no gate, it's not going to really make financially a difference. But my biggest issue is even $5, you know, I don't want to pay. I already paid $2,500 a year for the maintenance and then taxes, and I just never bought into taking care of the roads. I just never did.
There's no doubt there is some exposure that would occur to a resident of a private road neighborhood that would be above and beyond your escrow. And we'll pick on the farm at Willow Creek. The town of Farragut, as well as a previous developer, as well as a current round of lot owners, has spent to the tune of $1.125 million. Mayor, is that right? And believe me, that was...
Well, we haven't spent it yet.
You've allocated it. You've approved it. The Board of Mayor and Alderman has approved it. It's a significant amount of money. Obviously, no one ever saw that coming. But I guess as a homeowner, I would want to know of that potential exposure if all of a sudden you had a catastrophic... Obviously, you're not going to get hit by a meteor, probably not in our lifetime. But it is possible your stormwater drainage system could collapse, and what everybody thought was a few $100,000 to $600,000 or $800,000 was $1.1 million to fix a stormwater drainage system. That's something nobody can escrow for. I mean, I assume if you did escrow for it, everybody would leave the neighborhood because the money would be so substantial. So no one ever thought that the collapse would happen at the Farm Willow Creek, but it did, and it happened right in Farragut. Maybe there's other factors involved. Maybe your system was put in to different standards. But those are definitely things that all the homeowners in a neighborhood that had private roads would have to get their arms around to understand of what their exposure potentially could be in a future assessment. Because you take 1.1 divided by 74, it's a lot of money.
Well, and take out 46 lots, because those are the 46 that are owned by the developer. If they go belly up, one of you asked, you know, Mr. Nixon in May, if what can you do to guarantee that you're going to be in the subdivision, and he said there is no guarantee. So then you start eliminating 46 lots, because I mean, if it goes to a bank, how do you make them pay? I don't know.
Well, I mean, the bank would be held to the same standard as, and I'm not an attorney, but a bank would be held to the same standard. So if there was an assessment, a builder or a developer could get out those assessments through foreclosure or bankruptcy, but a bank, I think, would have a tough time. I assume your developer, your neighbors could probably resolve that, but I guess just everybody has to get their arms around.
I was just hoping that we would have more homeowners in the subdivision before we started to discuss such an intense financial burden, and they're making it sound like dollars. I don't believe it. I'm sorry, I just don't.
Obviously, they've offered some sort of a
compromise. Seen any
right, obviously haven't seen anything in writing.
And I asked for it in the last homeowners meeting. I asked for many things in writing, and I haven't had anybody contact me or anybody give me numbers. And Mr. Nixon is just saying it now, and I would like to see the numbers. I really would. And I know you can't predict how much asphalt will cost in 5 years, but what if we get the roads privatized, and then the next day, before we can even build an escrow, something happens. And I'm not crazy into thinking that a comet's going to come and blow up our neighborhood, but things happen. I didn't even think about the snow and all those things, so now I'm really getting concerned by other things.
I would like to offer some commentary, if I may. You know, we reached a point in some discussions where we start to move beyond what the initial issue was, and it gets a little emotional, and I appreciate that. Well, this is what I've heard, okay? So you and Jim, maybe you need to continue to be the spokesman for the group. I'm not sure the big issue here really is private versus public streets. As I peel back the onion a little bit, what I've always heard is the security of the neighborhood. And what has been brought up is the only way to get the gate is to make the roads public or private. I'm going to go back to a comment I made earlier. I'm way beyond my expertise, but in the length of time I've been on this board, there's been many issues that have been brought before here that weren't black and white. They were different. And we had to do some research, and we had to, get some legal opinions and have some discussion. And there's been great discussion here, and quite frankly, I've not heard anything tonight that doesn't make sense to me, regardless of which side of the coin we're on. I think our guest, the attorney here, did a very good job of summarizing the concerns, and I think the mayor did a great job of summarizing the other side of the coin. But again, I want to go back to the issue that I've really heard you want to resolve is having a gate on that community. I'd really like to see us, I would make a suggestion that, and I'm not trying to delay this, I want to do it right. You want to have it done right as well.
We want to do it right.
I think I think it would be best for us to try to get some more concrete answers to many of the issues that have been raised tonight. And the comment I made earlier is I'd like to see us look at if there is a possible evolution of what exists today in the legal arena, whether that's specific to the town of Farragut or if it's a state of Tennessee or what have you, and see if there isn't a halfway point where we can allow a development to have a gate without making the roads private. I'd like to think that there would be other developments in our town. I know at one time my own development was looking at doing that. I was not part of that discussion, however. But I think maybe this would be a moment just for everybody to take a breath, think about all the things that have been raised tonight, and for us to have an opportunity as a body to do some additional research. I was not part of the discussion in May, so maybe that's already been done. But again, I think everybody's gotten so focused on the private versus public. What I really believe you've asked for is the gate.
That's what we'd like to have.
Let me suggest this. There are a lot of issues that we are not going to clear up tonight, obviously. If we take a vote and we vote no, that's it. It's over. If we vote yes, it's not over because we have to write amendments to the subdivision regulations.
That's one of the key points we haven't discussed, is we've got a tactical problem on security, but yet it brings into play strategic issues, one of which is the road. That's only one. One, and I must apologize to you, I could have asked anybody in your community the question I asked. Okay. The real point being, there's one thing relative, we're going to take an action that affects all the subdivisions. It's a regulation. It's not just for your subdivision. You have a tactical issue, and I certainly understand that. I mean, I understood that when we discussed even developing that subdivision and its proximity to the commercial development and that entryway, right? So there's a tactical issue, and you bring up like the security, and we recognize that. But we also have the strategic implications of changing the subdivision regulations for the town that affects the whole town. And then the other part is just, I'll say somewhat, I'll say personal, what are we trying to be as a town? And I think that's a community, and that was the point of a community of all of us, as opposed to an outward connection of community, connectivity of walk trails, maybe a community center someday, the parks and what have you, as opposed to places I know I've been. You mentioned some that I've been to as well. It's a series of gated communities and enclaves and compounds, and is that what we want to be strategically as a town? So to me, there's some issues we hadn't really talked about. So we've got the strategic things we're trying to change that, if they could change the character of the town and the regulations of the town to solve a tactical problem just for your subdivision. So if there's something, I know the mayor makes an excellent point about, I mean, from the action we take tonight, well, maybe it is best to drop back a little bit, look at this thing in perspective, to explore something maybe like what Ron's talking about, to see where
I
there is
think
some
I'm just
middle
not
ground.
ready to vote tonight because I want to know more. I want to see what our lawyer says. I want to see what are the exact words we'll put into the
Yeah.
amendment.
And is there a way to
There's been a
have
lot
a
of good
win-win in
discussion
this?
here.
Can
And
we,
again, I'm not trying to delay you, but we need to make sure we do it right, because just for those of you that are here in the audience, one of the most difficult things is what Ed alluded to. Every time we make a change, it doesn't affect just that subdivision or that piece of property, it affects everybody. So I'm going to attempt to use proper terminology. I'm not an expert on Robert's Rules of Order, so if I need to correct it, I certainly will. I'd like to make a motion that we table this, do some additional research, get some legal opinions from the town attorney on what we can and can't look at as options, and continue discussion at a later date.
Second on that?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks.
Okay,
Could I make one additional comment?
Sure.
please. No, come up to the microphone. We're not through. We have other things to do.
It's never over till it's over.
You remember our
You know, we
community.
talked about financial responsibility, and we talked about, as it stands right now, who's responsible for those streets, and who would be responsible if they became private streets, and that responsibility would rest upon a group of people who have said they would take that responsibility. And then there was that thought injected somewhere by someone that, well, what if we defaulted on that? What if it was some kind of catastrophe and we just said, no, we can't handle that? What would be the outcome of that? It would revert right back to Farragut. And that's where you are now. So you have nothing to lose as far as financial matters are concerned, but you do have that great possibility of relieving the Farragut residents of that responsibility. Thank you.
Item number 7, discussion and amendment to the Farragut zoning ordinance, Chapter 4, Section 14, special events permit, and this is for discussion only tonight.
Signs.
Okay. I've been asked to call a 2-minute recess here.